It's a bit wry listening to this story in the environment in which we're in at the moment, isn't it? The disciples are behind locked doors. We're supposed to be at home, socially isolated. Jesus comes, stands amongst them, so he breaks our current rules. And then even worse, he breathes on them. And you go, wow, our state health director would not be happy with this behaviour if it was happening today. So it's kind of wry reading this kind of message, this story at this time. But it's a very powerful story, and it's a story that, particularly in the way John has written his gospel, that establishes us as God's people. For here Jesus comes to his disciples who are confused, who don't know what to do next, and he establishes them as the people of God, called into a ministry in the world. This is John's Pentecost. And so in this story, Jesus first establishes us as being reconciled to God. Peace is the message I have for you, he says to his disciples. And then he commissions them, as he commissions us, to be peacemakers in the world, to be agents of reconciliation. This is our fundamental journey, our fundamental call as the people of God. And in some senses, we all pray for peace and we all say peace is wonderful. It's a kind of platitudinous statement today. But I want to remind you that peacemaking and the work of reconciliation is tough work. It's the work of people who are courageous. It's the work of people who are confident in the faithfulness of God, in the goodness of God. It's the work of people who are ready to let go of what they think should happen, to co-create a new story with others. The work of peacemaking is deeply challenging. And I just want to remind you of some of the peacemakers of the last few years and what's happened to them. Anwar Sadat, the leader of Egypt. Yitzhak Rabin, the leader of Israel. Gandhi, the leader of his people. Martin Luther King Jr. 3 of those people were killed by their own people for seeking to bring peace and reconciliation with those their people feared. So this work of peacemaking isn't a Pollyanna exercise. It's a tough journey and it's a hard journey, and it's a journey that requires an utter confidence in the capacity of God to be at work in the world. And it's the work that you and I have been called to. It's the work that you and I are called to bear witness to day by day. You can't have peace without justice. And so the work of making sure that we are living fairly with one another, in equity with one another, is a part of the work of reconciliation and peacemaking. But the point of this passage is to lay this work firmly and squarely in the hands of us, the people of Jesus Christ, and to call us to be those people in the world. One day, I'm hoping for this. One day, I'm hoping that in the wider community in which we Christians live across the world, when people are in conflict, they'll say, let's go and ask the Christians. They know how to live at peace with one another. They know all about reconciliation. Let's ask them. So what is it about our life that we need to express and do so that that witness might be evoked in the life of the wider world? That's a challenge. That's a question I want to ask of you. For in John's Gospel, it's very clear. We're called into the dangerous, challenging, fruitful and blessed work of peacemaking. That's our call. So the second part of this story is one of my favourite stories, really, because it's the story of Thomas encountering the risen Lord. And in many ways, Thomas is our man on the spot. For we who live post the Ascension, post Pentecost, we who have not had an experience of the resurrected Christ concretely and tangibly before us, Thomas functions here, I think, in this story as our guy. Because he says to the disciples who said they've seen the Lord, yeah, right, you're kidding yourself. Unless I experience it, I think you're all in cloud cuckoo land. And so Jesus comes and represents himself to Thomas. And I think maybe with a little bit of rebuke in the tone of Jesus, Jesus invites him to touch, to encounter the concrete reality of the resurrected Jesus. And Thomas, good on him, responds with faith. And it's very important the words that he says. He responds with the words, "My Lord and my God." And here John is saying, calling us, the church, to understand our fundamental allegiance. John's Gospel was probably written in a time when the Roman Empire was calling the fundamental allegiance of people to itself, to the emperor, as the Son of God. So this statement by Thomas is not simply a statement of personal faith, it's a statement of political reality. And it's for us in the Western world, particularly as the nation states have become so strong and so dominant in our life, it's for us as the Christian church to remember that our fundamental allegiance is to the God revealed in Jesus Christ. And we interpret and understand all the other allegiances which we're called to. And some are absolutely right, but we do never give ourselves fundamentally to anyone or anything else but the God revealed in Jesus Christ. So I encourage you to be reflecting on that sense of who am I? Am I a citizen of Australia who happens to be a follower of Jesus? Or am I a follower of Jesus who's called to bear witness to the goodness of God in this nation and as a citizen, as a part of the life of this nation, Australia? I think this passage and Thomas's confession and his presence reminds us and calls us to knowing and understanding our fundamental allegiances. For if we of the church are going to be of any blessing and of any contribution to the health and well-being of our communities and of our societies, it is as we understand our fundamental mission, that is to be peacemakers. To those who see and understand when violence or coercion or manipulation is being played, to resist it, to see it and know it and to resist it in a way of non-violence. And it is for us to understand ourselves as the people of God on the journey towards the promised city, towards the promised goal, a goal that God will bring. So it helps us be who we are, I think, this passage in the life of the world, and calls us to remember a number of fundamental things. So I pray blessing for you. I pray that the Spirit will give you courage to be a peacemaker. I pray that you will be able to rest in the witness of Thomas and know that the resurrected Lord is amongst us. God is with you. The Spirit will empower you to do the work that God is calling you to do. Step out in faith. God bless you.